Hi, everyone. I'm Sin and I'm an alcoholic. Um, so I shared about 3 years ago, I think, and at birthday night in August, and I was terrified and I got my sobriety date wrong and everything. And I thought this time will be different. It's not. Um, please bear with me. But so I'm Sin and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 7/27/20. That means last month I turned 5. Thank God. I have a sponsor. We meet weekly. I'm very grateful. I've had the same sponsor my whole sobriety. And we're currently going through the steps again. Um, I have service commitments, or I have a home group. That's this amazing group, the Love and Service Group. I have commitments here, and I also have a commitment at Intergroup. I'm the special events chair. So what it was like is, you know, childhood was crazy. I didn't know any different, but I even knew at the time it was crazy. I lived in two separate lives. Between the ages of 4 and 11, I split my time between my grandparents and where I lived with my mom, my brother, my grandparents. And it was like a Leave It to Beaver type life. My grandmother cut the crust off my sandwich. My lunches would be so heavy that my grandmother would have to tie a rope around it to keep it closed. I was dropped off on time. I was picked up on time, the whole nine. And then the other half of the time, I lived with my mom and my stepdad, my mom's boyfriend at the time, and also her dealer in Baby Hunters Point in San Francisco. And he was the local dealer, and we lived with a couple of his family members, and that was just a very dark place. Nobody was awake during the days. Everybody was up at night. I wouldn't see my mom for days at a time because she would lock herself in the basement in my stepdad's room, and I wouldn't see her for days. I went to school in dirty clothes if I went to school at all. Was told just to buy food when I got to school. And so this is the two lives that I lived until I was about 11. And at 11, my mom got sober. She went to CA meetings that Tuesday night in the Tenderloin, and I would go with her and my brother. And, I got my mom back. About 6 months later, my dad had been in recovery from heroin. He had gotten clean and sober, and he was doing well for a few years. And then he ended up having a back injury. He didn't disclose his addiction, and he ended up taking pills, and then ended up within 6 months, he was hawking things from the house, and he was found dead in his shower with the shower running. So that was just, life for me. That was weirdly normal. I ended up going to things like Alateen meetings, and that was pretty much CA meetings and Alateen were all I knew about recovery. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I loved seeing my mom laugh at CA meetings, and I loved the humor in groups, and it was great. And that would be something that would help me later in life, thank goodness, to end up finding my way into the rooms of AA. So basically, I was a late bloomer I didn't start drinking till I was 6 months shy of my 21st birthday. I didn't really like it. I only pretended to like wine because the grown-ups seemed to say it was, you were special and you were an adult, and that's what I wanted to be. But it faded, like, without knowing it, within 6 months of drinking, up until my 21st birthday, I was finding myself crying on bathroom floors in nightclubs. I was finding myself losing purses and wallets. And so then I graduated from college, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to be a big girl. And I just stopped drinking, and it was easy. And I went to the police academy, and I started work there. I got injured. I ended up moving over and climbing the corporate ladder. Everything was great. And in this time, I would take time off of drinking. I would drink for a little bit, and then I would not drink. And then I would drink a little bit, and then I would not drink. It was very easy to do. because I was so afraid of drug abuse. I wasn't really paying attention to drinking. And so I would just do anything in my power to stay away from drugs. And I thought if I just keep proving to myself that I don't do drugs and I can stop drinking, then I'm good. And it was good for a long time, but I didn't realize until now, in getting sober, that I was relying on other isms. Those were perfectionism and workaholism. Everything had to be perfect. I had to look perfect. I had to work 100-hour weeks so that you would like me, so that you would validate my existence, because I never felt seen. I never felt loved. I never felt that anybody wanted me around unless I had something to offer them. And so through work and perfectionism, I just kind of gave this impression to people that everything's great all the time. And once those started to not serve their purpose, I was working in New York and I was dealing with a boss who was sexually harassing me, and my workaholism wasn't serving me. My perfectionism wasn't serving me. And this was the first time I can remember where I left work and I went to a bodega and I got 2 bottles of Korbel and I went home. And as soon as I drank it, I felt okay. And it was from that moment until I stopped drinking that alcohol was different for me. I had that experience that people talk about where I felt, amazing and I felt like no problem. That was the moment. I didn't have it before, but that day changed everything for me in my mind. I went to Dubai. I pulled a lot of geographics in my story because they worked. It was, well, that's the problem, the job, the family, the this, the that. And I never realized I was running away from something. I always thought I was running to something, building this amazing life. Eventually, I moved my way all around practically the world, and I came back to New York or San Francisco. And I got my dream job back in New York in 2018. And I was so excited, and I packing up to move back. And my brother gets arrested for a number of things a week before I moved, and he's facing life in prison. And this is my little brother who I raised, and, yeah, he looks, he's this big guy and he looks strong and all of that, but he's still my little baby brother. And I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't help him at all. And that powerlessness is not something I deal with well. The loss of control is not something I can handle. And I started drinking incessantly. As soon as I moved to New York, I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't sleep, so I would drink a bottle of wine to sleep. By the time I left New York, a year and a half later, I was drinking at work. I was drinking before, after. I would sleep in the office because I had been drinking while I was working, and I would pass out on the couch. That's fun, waking up to your, boss in the morning, like, oh, I was just working late, and there's like 2 bottles of wine sitting next to you. And that's just what life became. And I was a different person when I drank towards the end. In the beginning, I was very fun and free, and yeah, it made me more social. By the end, I allowed myself to be angry. When I'm sober, I have to be perfect. Everything has to look good. But when I drank, I didn't give 2 cents about it. I remember blasting music at a neighbor because they were being too loud. These passive aggressive things that I would do. I was angry. I would call my mom or other people and say horrific things to them on the phone. So anyways, I ended up moving back home from that job. They downsized, and I moved home in 2020, January of 2020. Before I know it, COVID hits. I'm at home, stuck with my family. I'm drinking. And I stopped drinking again, thinking, okay, I got it back together. And my mom and I got in a huge fight, and I ended up getting COVID. And I was stuck in a room at my friend's house, isolated from everybody, nobody talking to me, my mom not talking to me. And I drank myself into oblivion for about 3 weeks. And the only memory I have of that 3 weeks was on a Friday before my sobriety date, I came to and I felt so ill and I'm shaking and I'm on the couch and all there is a roll of Ritz crackers sitting next to me. And I have a highball glass of warm vodka and I it looked disgusting. It felt disgusting. It was warm and gross and I had to drink it. I could not drink it. And it scared me to death. And I thought, well, I don't want to live anymore. So fine, I'll just drink this and die. And then the second thought came, well, this is my best friend's house. And I had been renting a room. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that to him. Come home and find one of your best friends dead on your couch. That's not fair. And so I thought, all right, I'm go to the hospital just to detox. I didn't think about AA. I didn't think that I was an alcoholic. I just thought I'm in a rough spot and I need a little bit of help just to deal with the coming down. So as that type A personality that I am, I made a plan and I thought, I'm going to fix the house. I'm going to pack a bag. And on Sunday, I'm going to go to the emergency room. And that's what I did. I cleaned the house, I restocked all their booze, I packed a bag so that when they came home, everything looked fine, right? I found out years later that when I made my amends to him, that they had exterior cameras and they saw everything. So they knew that I was taking bagfuls of recycling to other people's bins. They knew that I had, how drunk I was climbing up the stairs and the whole nine. So that was a fun amends to have. But so I ended up going to the emergency room that Sunday and I ended up detoxing at my mom's house for a couple of weeks. I got into Olympia House and I went there for about a month. And I'm grateful to say that that today, that was my last drink was that weekend. And I'm grateful to say that from then till now, I haven't found a reason to drink and I've had many, if I really thought about it. But this program has taught me so much. And so what it's like now is at 2.5 years sober, I thought life should be amazing, right? You hear everybody gets sober and life just gets great and they get a house and they get a car and they get a spouse and they get kids and they get all the things that they want, right? The dream job. None of that was happening for me. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And at 2.5 years sober, I was so depressed, I wanted to kill myself. I had never wanted to kill myself while I was sober or when I was drinking. But I realized I heard a speaker share and they said the same thing. And they said, because when they were still drinking, they still had a solution and it was the alcohol. And it wasn't because I wasn't working a strong program. It was actually because so much stuff had come to the surface that I had been pushing down for years that I needed to seek outside help. And so I ended up going on disability at work and I went and got a therapist from outside. And, I'm so grateful that my sponsor was so supportive and just willing to help me along that journey, knowing where she could help and where the therapist could continue to help. Between then and now, I have gone from where I could barely make it to a meeting. I was sleeping 6-7 days a week, to now, feeling like I'm normal again, or I'm more myself again. I did a lot of things wrong in the last couple of years, but the things that I did right were that I never stopped going to meetings. I kept a service commitment here at Love and Service on Thursday nights. So even if I hadn't taken a shower or brushed my teeth or gotten out of bed for a week, I did on Thursdays. I got up, it took every little bit of energy I had, but I would come to that meeting. And even if I was crying in the back or not very talkative, I still showed up and I did it. When people asked me to be of service in other capacities, I just said yes, even though I didn't want to do it. And that's how I got involved more so with Intergroup. I went from being one of the back helpers who could barely be around crowds because of how depressed and anxiety ridden that I was, to now actually heading it. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the people in these rooms that just helped me along and gave me the little bits that I needed. I've found in the last couple of years, I've started to figure out who I really am, what I really like, what I don't like. I've found the most amazing friends and family in these rooms. If it wasn't for the people in these rooms, I would not be here today. I would get phone calls and text messages from random people that I didn't even think noticed me in a meeting saying, please don't do it today. We love you. And if it wasn't for those messages at the right times, I wouldn't be here. And if it wasn't for her, I also wouldn't be here. Because anytime I have those thoughts, because I still do from time to time, I immediately look at her and I think about how much all of you guys love her. And it just makes all the difference to me. So, said I wasn't going to cry, but the last couple of years, I wondered why getting sober was so easy for me. As soon as I put down that last drink, I didn't have any desire to drink again. And I think it was my higher power just getting me ready for the battle that I had to deal with the last couple of years, which was my mental health. I talk a lot about mental health because prior to me talking about it, I had never heard anybody else talk about it. And once I started talking about it in my shares, I would have especially women come up to me and say, oh my God, I felt the same way. I made a pact with a woman in one of these rooms because she was suicidal at the same time I was. And we both said, if you don't do it, I won't do it. And it's all these little things, these little pieces of love and grace and kindness that are shown by the people in these rooms that have helped me to, one, still be here, but two, to know how to give back to you as well, to not be so in my own head, concerned about myself, but more concerned about how I can help my fellow suffering alcoholic. Because just because you're in the rooms and sober for a number of years does not mean that life is great. It means that we're still struggling. We still have this disease called alcoholism, and it's tough, and we can't do it without each other. And so with that, I'll say thank you so much for asking me to share, and I'm very grateful for all of you. Thank you. All right, and our next speaker is Dawn.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dawn and I am an alcoholic. Hello. I would first like to say thank you to Sin for doing birthday night with me. And then I would also like to thank Chris for asking me to speak tonight and the Speaker Seeker Committee. And then I don't think they're here tonight, but I would also like to thank Jeanette and Kevin for a kick-ass picnic today. I don't know if they're here, but it was a lot of work for them. Anywho, I'm grateful to be back up on the stage here at Love and Service on Sunday night. The last time that I was up here was the first time that I was up here, and it was for birthday night, and it was when I was 1 year sober. And I was very nervous about coming up here and standing on this stage because I was 1 year sober. And what did I have to share and to tell all of you? I remember sitting in the front row, 3 seats in, next to my sponsor for an entire year, listening to the compelling and provocative speakers that we would bring in to this meeting. And I was like, how can I compare to these people? You know, I had alcoholic parents. I tried not to be like them. Somehow, mysteriously, I ended up like them in my 40s. I'm trying to get sober. I'm working with a sponsor. I pour coffee on Thursdays. The end. Right? I'm like, how can I share for 10, 15? I mean, back then there was 3 of us. It was like 10, 15 minutes. What am I going to do? And I was reminded that you can expand a little bit in those areas and somebody in the audience is going to be able to relate to what you're saying. And if even one person can relate to what you're saying, then you've done your job. You've been of service. You were there for your home group. Someone in the crowd is like, hey, I can relate to what she's saying. And so I was like, okay, I'll go up and I'll do that. So I did. I don't remember much of it. It was like a blur. And then I came off the stage and the audio chair handed me a CD. And they're like, here, Dawn, now you can listen to yourself again. And I'm like, no, I will never listen to this. I still haven't listened to it. Maybe one day, maybe down the road when, I feel like listening to some good old times. But the thing is that when I first started sharing, it was a lot about what it was like and what happened. And now it's a lot more of what it's like now. And that's the part that I really want to share about, because so much amazing stuff has happened to me in this program because I've been here and I've been doing the work. I said that I was raised by two alcoholic parents, and one of them, my mother, wasn't around when I was growing up. I didn't get to meet her until I was 13. And she would take me to AA meetings because she was getting sober. I met her at a sober living environment in Santa Rosa, and she would take me to meetings with her, which was really uncomfortable. And it was great that she was getting sober, but it was still awkward because I was 13 and I didn't know this woman. And she would make me sit in these meetings. And this was back when they all smoked in meetings. And so it was horrendous to sit there with all the cigarette smoke. And then they would share their feelings, and that was awkward. And then they would hold hands in the end and they would chant. And I was like, this is terrible. Like, great that you're getting sober, but this is terrible. Like, I don't want any of this, And my dad was a functioning alcoholic back at home. Thank God my grandparents were around to help raise us. But I didn't want any of this. And so I decided that I was going to run as fast as I could the other way and be nothing like these people. And that's what I did. And that's what I spent my life trying to do. Because I thought if I had all the things that they didn't have for me or for themselves, that it was going to be okay, that I was going to be better than them. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I would be better than them. And I would be successful and I would have everything. But somewhere along the line, alcohol made its entrance into my life. And I'll never forget the first time I drank alcohol. And it was my freshman year of high school. And my friend and I stole a bottle of cheap wine out of her parents' liquor cabinet. And we went up to the baseball fields and we opened it up. We forgot the wine opener. So we took like a piece of the wire fence and like jammed the cork in the bottle. It was awesome. Anyway, we chugged this bottle of wine. And that feeling that I had after that, the spinning, laying there on the cool grass, staring up at the the sky of stars, that was it. I loved it. I've tried a lot of other drugs and just didn't do it for me. It was alcohol. So I kept that in my back pocket, went through life, made some mistakes, had some fun. But really, it was all about the suit of armor that I had on and the self-centered, selfish behavior that was going to get me to where I needed to go. And so after my life is going on and the wheels start coming off, it was okay though, because I had my college degree, I had my husband, I had my kids, I had a house, and I was holding it all. But at the same time, I was like standing on the edge of an alcoholic cliff, just teetering over the edge with all of this. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the hell did I get here? I tried so hard not to be like my parents, and here I am, and I'm just like them. And I'm about to lose everything because I'm destroying my marriage. I'm lying, I'm cheating, I'm stealing. And I just couldn't understand how I'd gotten there. I'm stuck between the cunning, baffling, and powerfulness of alcohol. And I kept making excuses, thinking that because I was doing all the things that I was supposed to do, and I had a job and I had a career, and I didn't know if I wanted to be a parent, but luckily I married into an amazing family. And then I knew it was okay, because when I was raised with these alcoholic parents, how was I supposed to be a good parent? I had nothing to go off of. And so I was worried, what do I have to offer children? So for a while, I didn't know if I wanted to have children. But when I did have them, it was like, how did I wait so long to have children? So I'm standing there and I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen to me. But then like I'm holding up a mirror and I see my mother and I'm like, yep, this is exactly what I did not want to be. And now I know that I am my mother's daughter and I'm an alcoholic. And I just immediately was like at peace with it. And just something came over me and I went immediately and did the next right thing. My husband was about to give up on me, but the rest of the family was there to help me and get me into detox, get me into a 30-day rehabilitation program up in Sacramento. And when I walked into those rooms, again, I was baffled at how I had gotten there, what I was doing with all these people that I never would have associated with otherwise in my life. And we made friends, we bonded, we cried, we laughed, we shared deep feelings. You know, I heard my story and these other people in this rehab, and I was like, yes, I am finally in the right place. And I read the big book every night in the back stories every night. And then I got home and I was determined to do this right. And I came to Love and Service. It was a Thursday night. I walked in the room and I saw all you happy, laughing people. And I was like, these people are happy and they're doing great and they're not drinking. So this is it. I must be in the right place. And that was it. I did not look back. And I was 40 something when I came into the rooms. And so I didn't have any time to waste. So I needed to get to work. So I was the one sitting in the meetings with the composition notebook, taking notes, writing down the speaker, the topic, describing people, describing the snacks, describing, the vibe in the room. I went to 90 meetings in 90 days, and a lot of them were different meetings. I tried them all because I wanted to find where I fit in. And when I walked into the room, the Generations room down the hall, that was where I fit. And I found my sponsor in that room, and we still work together, although she doesn't live in the state anymore. We still meet on Zoom every week. We do work. I have sponsees that I work with. It is a great joy in my life. They have sponsees. It's like a family. It's beautiful. It's amazing. I haven't had a perfect time since I've been in the program. It's been wonderful. I'm only 7 years in. I've made mistakes. I've done things wrong, but now the difference is because I've worked the steps and I have the tools that I'm able to catch myself before shit really hits the fan. Well, sometimes it still hits the fan, who am I kidding? But most times I can catch myself, even if it's before, during, or right after. Sometimes before I can open my mouth, like I'll stop myself and I do that 10-step right all in like 2 seconds. I'm like, but fuck, okay. And then I'm just honest because I know that that's really the only way that I'm going to be free is if I'm just honest. And it's hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not. Sometimes I get uncomfortable and I'm in an uncomfortable place, but I know that if you're not living at the edge of your comfort zone, then you're probably not doing it right. And we all know this in this room. And if you're new out there, just know that you're in the right place and there's nothing better out there than right here. There's no shortcut. There's no quick fix. There's no back door. There's no alternate way. It's this. It's working with a sponsor. It's doing the 12 steps and it's being of service and it's getting out of your head. One of my greatest character defects is holding people to too high of a standard and having unrealistic expectations of how other people should act. And I think it's because when I was running away from my parents, I wanted, everything to be just right. And they were doing it right. I knew what was right and I was going to go get it and it needs to be right. And that's not always the case. People need to be allowed to be who they are and they need to make decisions for themselves. And if they don't do what I want, it's okay. It's all right. It's going to be fine. And I'm still learning that. And it's something that I work on every single day. I get up and I do prayers. I meditate. I do readings because I want to set myself up and center myself every morning to be the best person I can, because I know it's inevitable. Something's going to come up that's going to make me want to just go into that old behavior, that selfish, self-centered behavior. And I can't afford that anymore. And I have to be a good example for my sponsees, right? So that's what I do. And the prayer, my favorite prayer is the third step prayer. And I do that one every morning, and it fits. If I had it my way, and I told my sponsor this, I would get it tattooed on the inside of my home to remind me to stay out of my own head and to help other people. Relieve me of the burden, bondage of self, that I may better do that I will. And that's true. And I need to remind myself of that every single day. And, you know, when I was first coming into the rooms, my daughters were 10 and 12. And I brought them with me. I brought them with me because I had to. And so they sat in the chairs next to me, just like I sat with my mom. And they did it willingly. I mean, now they're at ages where I couldn't get them in here to save my life. You know, I tell them, like, I'm speaking tonight at Love and Service. Do you want to come? And they're like, man, you can go online. But when they were young, they came with me and they ate the cookies and they held hands and they call it the chant, by the way, they call it the chant. And they did it because, you know, they wanted to support me, and they really had a choice back then. But now, just like when I was 13 years old, going to AA meetings with my mom and hating it and wishing I wasn't there, it was sinking in a little bit. You know, I was hearing things and I was seeing behaviors that were sinking in. I may not have realized it then, but I was. And now, hopefully, I've laid a little bit of a foundation for my daughters, so that in the future, if they ever need it, they need me, I will be there for them sober. But if they ever get into any trouble or anything happens, or, you know, they start questioning things, they have hopefully remembered a little bit of the foundation and they can look at me as an example and a role model in their lives. And even though I did not think I was going to be a good parent, and I thought I have no business being a parent, now they're the greatest things that have ever happened to me. And I was able to be there for them sober. So this program, again, is really a gift. And I'm so grateful for all the work that I put in, grateful for all the people in this room, grateful for my commitments. If you haven't come to Thursday, I'm going to be newcomering for just a couple more weeks. Come on by. I've served coffee. I've done grapevine. I've worked intergroup. I've dabbled in general service. One day when my kids go to college, I'll probably come back to it because I really enjoyed it. I've got one going off to college, one in college, one about to go off to college, so I'm close. But there's so much more that I get to do, and it's just such a beautiful, full life. And I have so many more things that I want to tell you, but I will just end by saying, again, if you're new in the rooms and you're wondering if you're in the right place, I can tell you that you 100% are. And I look forward to being down there at the bottom of the stairs at the end of this meeting and being able to look you in the face, in the eyes, and shake your hand and tell you that all over again, because it's 100% true. So thank you for letting me be of service tonight. And I would like to welcome Drew back up to the stage.
All right, let's give our speakers another round of applause.